game theory for promoting strategic human interaction to create designs that matter. And it's going to be hosted by Jeffery Dernbach, UX strategist at T-Mobile, and Lubna Thabseem, senior learning experience designer. And just a quick note about Jeffery and Lubna. Jeffery is a user experience strategist focusing on design for extraordinary users in non-office-based environments. And his research focus is on behavioral game theory and how it can be applied with designer problems by focusing on designers' agency, improve their ability to sell design to stakeholders and multidisciplinary teams to realize impactful user experience. Currently designing and researching with T-Mobile in an agile design team, creating the future of communication software. And Lubna. So Lubna is a learning experience designer advocating usability of learning products through human-centered design practices. She recently joined the Learning Design Services team at a leading business consulting and financial services company to pursue her research on improving learner engagement and retention for the evolving workforce. Lubna is currently researching the application of behavioral game theory within the design landscape to improve human-to-human interaction and promote responsible design. So we're ready to start. So over to you guys. Thanks.
You're recording?
Hi everyone, this is Lubna here. I'm excited to be here and present this talk with Jeff, my friend. Okay, so we're going to be talking about game theory and how to use game theory principles to strategize your communications and to basically make meaningful interactions with people. And what happens when you meaningfully interact with people? A lot of things falls in place, right? Including advocacy. Now, I like to start this talk with a question because this is something that a lot of us can relate with. When was the last time you made an emotional decision? Like, say, for instance, you decide to spend your life's earnings on a startup idea, or to help somebody, you know, out of the blue, someone you know, someone you don't know, or you decide to call your ex, and 1 minute into the conversation, you decide that it's a really bad idea, right? So we all make these sort of decisions, and these are all different types of games that we play. And that basically is game theory. Game theory was derived for economists to make decisions, to help them make decisions, to predict markets. But when researchers coined this theory, they based it on the assumptions that human beings are rational players, right? If the decisions are games that we play, we're players. And are we rational? So we have seen ourselves make emotional decisions because we're not rational. We're irrational beings. Human beings have emotions, which is why they're irrational. So behavioral game theory, the studies around it, revolves around, it is grounded on the fact that people make decisions based on their beliefs, their core beliefs, their preferences, and the constraints, whatever it is that they're facing in that moment in time. So there are a lot of different games that we can, talk about, but for the purpose of this talk, I'm gonna take you through two games, cooperative equilibrium and ultimatum bargaining. And we're gonna tie that into, the design application game, which Jeff will take you through. So first game, imagine, has anybody in this audience ever wanted to rob a bank? You know, I hope not, but imagine and assume that you wanted to. You wake up one day wanting to do that, and you call a friend and you decide, to make a run for it. But today's not a lucky day, right? Because you get caught and you find yourself and your friend in an interrogation room in a police station. And the cops have a fair idea that you're in it together, but they have no ways to prove it. So what do? They give you options to choose from. So you can either remain silent or confess. So they give you certain, options where they give you certain conditions. That is, if you both don't confess, you confess, you get 1 year of jail each. And if one of you confesses and the other one doesn't, one of you gets to, go scot-free and the other one goes to jail. But if both of you confess, you get 3 years of jail. Now, considering that you have all of these options, which one would you go for? What do you think is your best chance for success, or your best strategy, or would give you the least amount of jail time? Of course, that decision would depend on the decision that your friend makes, right? So you would want to remain silent and get 1 year, but you're not sure if your friend's going to freak out and, in that get pressurized to confess. So you would definitely go for the fourth option here, which is to confess. That's your best. I mean, you can go for either of the two, but then this is definitely the strategy that is going to give you the least amount of jail time, considering all of the options. So that is your Nash equilibrium, because this strategy is going to be the same for your friend as well. So for both of you, for you and your friend, the best outcome or the best chance for success, which is the least amount of jail, to our pure strategy, which here in this game, what we've seen that in the prisoner's dilemma, that you had two strategies, but you could only strategize once. So that is going to be your pure strategy. Behavioral game theory, again, we were talking about game theory where, researchers assume that human beings are rational, but we're not, right? We're emotional beings. We make emotional decisions. And this theory is grounded on the fact that human beings make decisions based on their beliefs, constraints, and preferences. So what I'm going to do is, there are a lot of different games you can play. These decisions that you make, they are games, right? And we are the players. And you have a lot of different games that, I can talk about a lot, but for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to talk about two different types of games: cooperative equilibrium and ultimatum bargaining. And we're going to tie it back to the design application, which Jeff will take you through, which is the coordination assurance. Okay, so now the prisoner's dilemma. Imagine that you wake up one day wanting to rob a bank, right? Let's hope not, but just for the sake of argument, and you decide to take a friend with you, and you manage to get caught by the cops. Before you know it, you're at the cop station, and you are in two separate interrogation rooms. And the cops have a fair idea that you're in it together, but they have no ways to prove it. So what do? They give you options, right? They give you 4 options. You can either remain silent, you can either confess. Now, what would you do, right? Again, the cops tell you that if you confess, if you both remain silent, you get 1 year of jail time. If you confess and your friend if you confess and your friend, what happens is you get to go free and your friend gets 10 years of jail. And that's the same for both of you. Now, if both of you confess, you get 3 years of jail time. Now, considering all of these options, think about what would be your best chance for success, your best outcome, which means the least amount of jail time. It's definitely going to be 3 years, right? Because you would want to remain silent and get 1 year, but you have no way of knowing what your friend would choose. Because if you remain silent and he confesses, he gets to go free, and you don't want that, right? And that is your Nash equilibrium. So basically, confessing is a Nash, that particular strategy it works for both of you. It's your pure strategy because it's your best chance of success. So in this game, and it brings us to our first heuristic of game theory, which is in this game, whatever you've seen, you get basically to choose only once. So you can have a number of strategies, but you can strategize only once. And in a situation like that, you will definitely choose your best, choose a strategy that gives you the best chance of success. And that is your dominant strategy. And Nash equilibrium, like we've discussed this in, taking the example of our previous game, where the player, or where I don't have an incentive to move away from confessing, right? Unless you give me a better option. That is your Nash equilibrium. Now, we've seen games where you have two strategies. Imagine you have more than that, you have three strategies. So I'm going to take you through an example. I hope this audience is familiar with the rock, paper, scissors. I'm sure a lot of you have played it.
Yes, just a quick interruption, Lubna.
Yes.
We seem to have lost your slide. Could you please check your screen share?
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see my screen now? Awesome.
Yes, thank you. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
I seem to be having a bad connection. I'm sorry about that. Let's see. Okay. Run to the slide, and we were at okay. So we were here, right? So this is an example of a zero-sum game, which means it's a constant sum game, right? So my gain is your loss, which kind of explains in the number. So you either tie, or you win, or you lose. Now, this is a really good example of, think about when you play this game, you have multiple, thoughts that's running in your head. Initially, you randomly pick, rock, paper, or scissors, and you start seeing that your opponent is beginning to strategize. And then the minute you're aware of that strategy, you start developing a counter strategy in your head and playing the game accordingly. So what's really, amazing about these type of games where you can keep, playing your strategy and choosing it, mixing your strategies up, is that you can build a reputation with it. Which brings us to our third heuristic, which is mixed strategy, right? So you have n number of strategies, and you can play it n number of times. And think about, how in our everyday lives, we get to do this every day, right? We get to make a reputation for ourselves with, the strategies, our actions, and our decisions that we, take. And of course, when you build a reputation for yourself, it's something that you can leverage, right? And I will get to that in the following slides. And that actually brings us to our next game, which is reputation building. Enough talk about theory. Let's put this game into action, and let's play a game, right? So say Jeff and I are feeling generous today, and we decide to give you $20 out of a pot of $100. And there are rules to this game. So if you choose to accept it, you get to keep the money, you get to keep 20, and we get to keep 80. But if you choose to reject it, neither of us get anything. So what would you do in that case, right? Would you accept it, or would you reject it? So now what I'm going to do is take you through, let's take a step back and think about, I would want the audience to think about the decisions that they would take depending on the players and depending on the situation, and and depending on the payoff that is offered to them. So why do you think we offered you the money, right? Why would anybody offer anybody an opportunity for free? Nothing comes for free, right? So why would we do that? And as players too, which is you, the audience, for those of you who would reject it, why would you reject it? Probably because you thought it was unfair, right? Well, why should I walk away with 20 when you get to keep most of the money? And what if it was Jeff, the American, who is offering you the money? Would you then take it? Or what if, Lubna, the Indian, is offering you the money? Would that change your decision? What if it's a really well-renowned personality that offers you this money? And what if it was a governing body, right? The government is giving you money for free, so yes, I'll take it, thank you. But Yes, it keeps changing. It keeps changing with when your opponent, depending on who your opponent is. Assume it's your favorite actor, and your favorite actor is offering you this money. Would you take the money? So do you see that your decision is changing depending on who the opponent is? What if your payoff was more like 40, 50, or you get 70% of the $100 pot? You're definitely going to take it, right? And what if Jeff and I are, you can see that we're in deep trouble. Like we are in a lot of trouble, and we're offering you $100 and $20 out of the 100. What happens then? So if you think about it, when you see that the person who offers the money is in trouble, you feel like you have a superpower to make a counter proposal, right? So you feel like you have the power to negotiate. So what I want to say about social decision making, all this kind of ties to that, right? So all the decisions that we make in our life basically ties to all of the things that I discussed about. One, it depends on who's playing the game. It depends on the situation you're in. It depends on the situation that your opponent is in. And we need to pay attention to the fact that think about why would you be generous at times and not at other times. It depends, right? It depends on the relationship you share with your opponent. And that in games of offering where you're exchanging some sort of money or you're exchanging help, it depends. It gives you the leverage to build a reputation for yourself. And if you build a good reputation for yourself, you can leverage that, because people automatically tend to want to do things for you. They want to listen to you. So here I would hand it over to Jeff.
So now, why do we talk about these games? I mean, what's the purpose of these games is to start thinking about different strategies that you can take every day as a designer and a UX professional when it comes to your, colleagues and how you interact with work. And so we look at Tony Stark, and if you remember from the Avenger movies, he made a lot of choices that were very self-centered, and, and Ultron was probably one of his bigger blunders that led to a lot of negativity in the future, such as, the Civil War with Captain America, and some of those things led to other things. And it became a cascading effect, in a very negative way. So the last game we want to talk about, and applying the first two games, especially with reputation building, and, and what you do when you're kind of in trouble, with the prisoner's dilemma, is think about the way you can coordinate with others. And like any good coordination, there's always, two people that work together, usually for a common goal. The problem is sometimes those ulterior motives and those common goals are what makes things a little bit sticky. So, we went to school as UX professionals, and through our, schooling and our experience and our education, we've learned, about human-centered design. We think about it. We think about design thinking, and, in the sense of we were applying things as a professionals. We also usually, in order to get our designs across, we want to research the problem statement. We want to research users and customers, on every level. And we gather this data, and then we take it and we apply it in meetings, and we apply it to our colleagues, and we apply it to either a client or, a product that we may be working on, for an individual organization. So then oftentimes as designers, and, as we have all this data, we have all this information, we think our designs are rock solid, and we bring them into a meeting, and then we find out it's quite hard, that we demonstrate a lot of the times, we get rejection. And the thing is, we usually end up like these people, and there's a lot of frustration if our ideas aren't adopted or they're not, accepted, even though we had, what we thought were the facts and the data and the experience on our side. So as we look through this, the things that are important is that as a designer, we're always going to be an easy target to ignore if we just always talk about design and we just keep repeating about why design's important and why design's good. It tunes out a lot of individuals. And so today we're focusing more on our colleagues and other people we work with versus the end users that we truly, seem to understand and support. And so I'm sure many of us have found that we're always going to be explaining design to anyone, to everyone. I explain to my mom, for example, and when I tell her I work with computers, she thinks I can fix her computer, but no, I don't know how to do that. I can help her maybe get through an app easier, and so it's just these kinds of things that, we find, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, we are always explaining design. And so the thing is because we spend a lot of time with each other, and our users, and especially designers, and working with users and customers, we research, we understand their problems, and we come up with solutions for that. But what we fail to get into is what are the other people's motivations of who we work with. In theory, in an organization, everyone should be working together for the company's best interest. But we all know that's not the case. We're humans. We're self-centered. We care about, whatever that is that we care about. I mean, PMs is to ship something on time. Developers probably, to build a good quality product, but do it in the easiest way as possible to reduce the amount of bugs or the work hours. I mean, most of the devs I work with probably work 60, 70 hours a week, and, that's not a life. And so when we think about people's motivations, especially our colleagues, as we, get into design and we start going to the boardroom and talk, do we ever think about if those our colleagues' motivations are rational? Well, the truth is everyone's rational. The only people that aren't rational, even terrorists are rational. The only people that aren't rational are 3-year-olds, and psychopaths. And so we have to, as we start to think about adopting designs with our colleagues, the question is, this last one is, why do we get to decide what's logical as we try to promote our designs? And so we want to use game theory, and we want to use the principles of reputation building and, decision making to start to, allow us to get our designs adapted better. And so the idea of the game theory was the research Lubna and I did around, different motivations of developers and non-designers. Not picking on developers in particular, it's just, that's sort of the other side of the coin here. Working with non-designers, and they can be managers, they can be stakeholders, they can be developers, QA, PMs, everyone we have to work with to actually, realize our dream of a product. And so turn this into a 5x5 game matrix. Like Lubna talked us through a 2-decision matrix with the prisoner dilemma, a 3-decision matrix with rock, paper, scissors, popular game. And it also through the idea of reputation building. So when we first started a company, or even if we've been at a company a while, depending on our relationships, it really means success. And so the common things that we found, as we were interviewing or just observing in our own practice or in working with people, was that first, if we just talk about one thing, we're really easy to ignore. The other thing is, this is a very popular one that I've heard a lot, in different places over the years. You don't have the time and money to implement that design. This is a key one when it comes to working with people, just about anyone, particularly in an organization that's not, everyone cares mostly about this. They don't necessarily care about design or you as a person, but they do care about their salary, their social standing, their, what bonus they can possibly get. And so they're motivated internally, not in the company's best interest sometimes, but in their best interest to do whatever it takes to, to get to where they want to go. And the last one, one of the other ones we've heard a lot is the customer has to use our product. And sadly, this seems to be the case in a lot of enterprise, enterprise software. And so we as designers often have to combat that enterprise users are users too. So we should put as much soul into it. And then this is another popular one, of course. And I'm sure how many of you, have heard this one, when you're trying to present a design, where sometimes even the people that you need to build the software will start coming up with alternative designs and have their own hand at, try to design thinking just to make, it faster and easier. So often, as we as designers, we have certain strategies, and we'll go through 5 basic strategies that can help us use game theory to help us sell our designs to our colleagues and realize the vision we want. This first one is tell them you know best because you're the designer and you went to school and you have the experience. I can tell you from experience this never works. And so I'm going to fill in some numbers here, and the numbers from 0 to 8, 8 being the best chance of success, 0 being no chance of success. So anytime you come up with hubris, it's never going to work, right? The next thing, so what does work though, is that you have to start building your reputation. The best way to do that is to get your colleagues to know you as a person. So exploring with questions about who they are, from social aspects of who they are, what motivates them, to, what's your job like? How hard is your job? what do you need to do how can I help you become successful? Then with that, you're starting to explain the benefits of design to them, not the benefits of design to the organization's customers or the organization's users, end users, but no, what's the benefits to them? Like, hey, here's something in my design that might help you solve this problem you have. Or, hey, let's, if we do it this way, in the long term, this will equal less work and probably a better chance of success for, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish in the company. Then another important one is using their language. Like, we as designers have our own lingo. We need to understand the lingo and the nuances of our colleagues, of who we're talking with and who we're interacting with. And all these things allow us to start building a reputation. And as we get to know our colleagues on a personal level, on a professional level, and more importantly, they get to know us, it's easier for them to trust us, and it's easier for them to take a chance on us. Because we all remember when we first started out mostly a large company, maybe a small company. The only one who really knew us was our hiring manager. After that, the people we have to work with day in and day out in our product teams don't. And so we have to do the things that we normally do when we want to make a friend, or remember from grade school and things like that, to the point, like professionally. Whereas we want to build our reputation and get them to know us and be comfortable with us and trust us, then we'll start to have greater advocacy, as we do things. And part of that, once you build a reputation and you start, building key people you can interact and work with, of course, you can find a champion and build your coalition. And then it's easier, especially with, and again, not picking on devs necessarily, but I found that when I can get a great relationship with certain devs who are willing to go the extra mile, willing to implement the design, even if it takes a little bit longer, or there's a little bit of maybe an immediate negative stance for them, like they might have to work longer. It goes a long way to help them convince stakeholders, convince, senior dev managers, convince, PMs, anyone that, this design is worth it. Because a lot of times, they don't see the benefit to the customer. They're not trained to think that way. They're trained to think in different ways, and we have to, understand that to work to, have a win-win at the end of the day. So we'll knock out that one because that's some work. And I just want to show off that when we were talking about Nash equilibriums earlier, this is the sort of opponent's best strategy in every circumstance, because this is the one thing that they'll care about, and this is the one thing they know they care about, and this is their underlying motivations. So you can use game theory and you can use some of these strategies to get to. So with that, as we look through this, I hope you found this useful, because at the end of the day, as we're becoming designers and we work with each other, we want to make sure that we don't end up like this guy. We don't want to come off as hubris, or we're designers, we know best, because in experience, and I'm sure everyone's noticed that as well, it doesn't always work. In fact, it hardly ever works, because even if somebody does something, there's going to be a level of resentment. And then the next time they may not do that. And so let's build coalitions. Let's use our reputation. Let's take an interest in each other, particularly our colleagues, and work on designs that not only satisfy the customer and the end user, but also then, are things that will work with our teams to actually get implemented, and that'll lead to success at the end of the day. So with that, I want to throw out, Lubna, I would like to throw out some books here that we found to be very useful in pursuit of game theory, in pursuit of working with, teams and our colleagues to, implement the strategies and the dreams that we as designers would like to put out in the world. Thank you very much.